Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But I play with a wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Sherman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I've had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I've only been married once, and that was a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
You know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. Thank you, Lane. That will do.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing!
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Pleasure, pleasure. What else you bring one anywhere? Anything as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are these people you amuse?
Neighbours. Neighbours?
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
And Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello, why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
But may I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you'd come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I can't really see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why? One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was especially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
You have been eating them all the time.
Oh, that is quite a different matter. She's my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is, too.
My dear fellow, you need not eat as if you're going to eat at all. You behave as if you're married to Arete. You're not married to Arete, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had left me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I'm very nearly offering you large rewards.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I have to be more than usually hard up.
There's no good in offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
That is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter. For now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Well, of course it's mine. You have seen with it 100 times. And you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I am quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you don't know anyone by that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. Charming old lady, too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me,
Yes? But why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
What on earth is hearing that? I mean, so some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is surely a matter that every aunt should be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does she call you her dear uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You have always told me your name was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. Well, you look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd you're trying to say your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany. I shall keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, in case you ever try to deny it to myself, to Gwendolen, or to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. The cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come on, old boy, you much better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
That is exactly what dentists always do. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I've always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a bunburyist?
Oh, I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily who lives in my place in the country, addresses me, her uncle, from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate. She lives in my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prison.
Where's that place in the country, by the way?
That, my dear boy, is nothing to you. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly, the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, I don't know whether you will be able to fully appreciate my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. But when one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty. It is one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce much, either to one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany, and who always gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not my forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to someone who hasn't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, in order that you may come up to the town whenever you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may go to the country whenever I choose. A Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You are absolutely careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family. I sit down with either no women at all, or 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always insists on flirting with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. That sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. So bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I am going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecil is a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I am going to get rid of Ernest. I strongly advise you to do the same with your Mr. Invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Oh, nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which I find extremely problematic, you will do quite well to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
Oh, that is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she's the only girl in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company, and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and a happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's so much beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you might have the opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes! But you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Mr. Fox.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That will leave no room for developments, and I certainly intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call upon dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolen, won't you come and sit here?
Oh, thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
No, it makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed colour, but from what cause I, of course, cannot say. No, thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I'll have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say, a terrible disappointment to me, but the fact is I've just received a telegram to inform me that my poor friend Bunbury is quite ill, and they seem to think that I should be with him.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
I must say, I think it's time Mr. Bunbury decided whether he was going to live or die. The shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve with the modern sympathy with invalids. I find it morbid. Illness of any kind is not a thing to be encouraged in ours. Health is the primary duty of life. I keep telling that to your poor uncle, but he never takes any notice. At least as far as any improvements with his health goes. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be so kind as to not have a relapse on Saturday, for I depend upon you to arrange my music for me. It's my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said everything they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak with Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. And I think I can promise you that he'll be quite all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll go over the program I've drawn out if you'll come into the next room with me for a moment.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Algernon. I'm sure the program will be delightful. After a few expurgations, French songs I cannot possibly allow. People seem to think they're improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. Now, German sounds a perfectly respectable language. And indeed, I believe it is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me?
Yes, Mama.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
Yeah, I do mean something else.
Oh, I thought so! In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Oh, I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I first met you, I have admired you more than any girl I ever have since I first met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you've always held an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I'm told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There's something in the name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you have made me.
Oh, my own Ernest!
But, you don't really mean to say you couldn't love me if my name was Adon?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is. But, supposing it was something else, do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual facts of real life, as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care for the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
Oh, but it suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. Oh, it has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Really, Gwendolen, I must say I think there are other, lots nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No! There's very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who's married to a man called Jong. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Ready, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you have led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you're not absolutely indifferent about me.
Oh, I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
Oh, I think an admirable opportunity to do so. And to spare you from any possible disappointment, I only think it quite fair to tell you beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you!
Gwendolen!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you won't say it!
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling! How long you've been about it! I'm afraid you've had very little experience of how to propose.
My own one, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise up from the semi-recumbent posture that is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing hasn't quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
Mr. Worthing and I are engaged, Mama.
I beg your pardon, but you're not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will advise you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be. It is hardly something she could be allowed to arrange for herself. Now, Mr. Worthing, I have some questions to put to you. While I'm making these inquiries, Gwendolen, you will wait for me below in the carriage.
But Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolen! Gwendolen, the carriage!
Certainly, Mama.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not on my list of eligible young men, although I share the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact. However, I am willing to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
Ah, very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who wishes to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
Ah, I'm happy to hear that. I do not approve of anything that interferes with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a rare exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The entire modern theory of education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would result in a danger to the upper classes and probably have dire consequences in Grosvenor Square. What's your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments chiefly.
Ah, that is satisfactory. But between the duties required of one during one's life and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position, but prevents one from keeping it up. And that's all that can be said about land.
I own a house in the country, with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. As far as I can make out, only the poachers are the people who make anything out of it.
Country house. How many rooms does it have? Oh, never mind. We can clear that matter up afterward. You do have a townhouse, I hope? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back any time I like, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham. I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Ah, nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number on Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I knew there was something. But that can easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I'm afraid I really have none. I am a liberal unionist.
Ah, they count as Tories. They dine with us. Come in the evening at any rate. Well, now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I'm afraid I've lost both my parents.
Both? To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost both my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say they seem to have lost me. I don't really know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, the late Mr. Thomas Cardew. A gentleman of a very kind and charitably disposition found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did the charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag.
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large, black, leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in an estate for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station.
Yes, the Brighton line.
But the line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. Oh, I confess I'm somewhat bewildered by what you have told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to display contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the greatest excesses of the French Revolution, and I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. This was the locality in which the handbag was found. A cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a certain social indiscretion has probably been used for that purpose before now, but it can hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a respected position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
I would suggest you make an effort to acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make every effort to produce at least one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Misa, what has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning! For heaven's sake, stop playing that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are, Algie!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolen refused you? I know it's a way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it's most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolen is right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. She's a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I am quite sure Lady Bracknell is one. She's a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
That is nonsense.
It isn't.
You always want to argue about the matter. I won't argue it. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that is what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I would shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That's the tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased. Quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. I can't go anywhere without meeting clever people nowadays. Everybody's clever nowadays. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolen the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about how to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Say he died in Paris of apoplexy. I'll get rid of him within a week. Quite a lot of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You much better say a severe chill.
You are sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But what about Miss Cardew? Didn't you say she was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest? Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
That is quite all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I shall take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty and only just 18.
Does Gwendolen know that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. Gwendolen and Cecily are perfectly certain to become extremely great friends. I bet you anything you like that within half an hour after they meet, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that after they call each other a lot of other things first. Now, we really must go and dress if we want to get a good table at Willis's. Do you know it is nearly 7?
It is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Well, what shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to the theater?
Oh no, I loathe listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
Oh no, I hate talking.
Well, shall we trot to the Empire at 10?
I can't stand bare looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing!
It's awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind work where there's no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolen, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolen, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude. You're not quite old enough to do that.
Gwendolen, darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression of Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she could possibly do will alter my eternal devotion to you.
Gwendolen, my own darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There's a good postal service, I suppose? It may be necessary to do something drastic. Oh, that will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one?
How long do you remain in town?
Until Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling?
Oh, certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You could put up my dress clothes, the smoking jacket, all the Bunbury
Yes,
suits.
sir.
Tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Now there's a sensible, intellectual girl if I ever saw one. The only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just anxious about poor Bunbury, that's all.
If you don't watch out, your poor friend Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Cecily? Cecily! Cecily! Surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Moulton's duty than yours? Especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray, open it to page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he is leaving for town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know of no one who has a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that's why he looks a little bored when the three of us are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember that constant anxiety about his unfortunate brother, young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come visit us sometimes. We might have a good influence over him. I know you certainly would, Miss Prism. You know German and geology and things that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could produce an effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I am not fond of this modern mania of turning bad people into good at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so let him reap. Cecily, you must put away that diary. I do not see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is a diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles things that have never happened. What could it possibly have happened? I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that the library sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily and the bad ended unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately abandoned, and I use the word in the sense of lost or misplaced. To your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
Oh, but I see Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, I trust you are well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll through the park with you, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not said anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you did. In fact, I was thinking about that and not my German when the rector arrived.
I hope, Cecily, you're not being inattentive.
I'm afraid I am.
Oh, that's strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from bees. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
No, we do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one of those whose sole enjoyment is pleasure. Like that unfortunate young man his brother seems to be. I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
Oh, I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all. And a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism. With pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geology, ugh, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany W, Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him that Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism are in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he'll look just like everybody else. He does!
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange misunderstanding. I'm not little. In fact, I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and really being good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I've been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
That is a terrible disappointment. I'm obliged to go up the first train Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you ought to wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he's anxious to talk to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating. He has gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wanted that Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you'll be requiring neckties. Uncle Jack is planning to send you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you had better choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts I've heard of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. No, this world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Mary Chamiel?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are snare every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I'd like to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, a womanthrope never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And often, I'm told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. Oh, I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Oh, Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing!
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
My dear Mr. Worthing, I trust the scarf of wool does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful debts and extravagance?
Still leading his life of pleasure?
Dead.
Your brother, Ernest, dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust you will profit by it.
I offer you my sincere condolence, Mr. Worthing. At least you have the consolation of knowing you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him in the end?
No, he died abroad. In Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. Nobody is perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to the tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and festal days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the upper orders. The bishop who was present was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, Dr. Chasuble, I think. You know how to christen, all right? I mean, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, and they do not seem to know what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant in whom you're interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But this is not for any child, dear doctor. I am very fond of children. But, no, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
But have you any serious doubts on the matter?
I certainly intend to have. I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think that I am a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I believe, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour would you like the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins which occurred recently in one of the cottages in your outlying estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
Oh, I don't see much fun in being christened alongside other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthy, I will no longer intrude into a house of sorrow. I would only beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. What appears to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
It would seem to me a rather obvious blessing.
Uncle Jack! I'm so glad you're back. But what horrid clothes you have on. Do you go in and change them?
Cecily!
My child.
Uncle Jack, do look happy. You look as though you have a toothache. And I have such a wonderful surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Brother Ernest. He arrived half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother!
Don't say that, Uncle Jack. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll go and get him, and you will shake hands with him, won't you?
This is indeed a joyful revelation.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room? I don't know what it all means. I think it perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother Jong, I have come down from town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I've given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to shake his hand. I think he's coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. And truly, there must be good in one who is kind to an invalid, who leaves behind the pleasures of London in order to sit by a bed of pain.
He has been talking to you about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he told me all about Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury? Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury, about anything else for that matter. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
While I admit the fault was all on my side, I must say that I find Brother John's coldness to me peculiarly painful. I expected a much more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering that this is the first time that I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we should leave the 2 brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Algie, you young scoundrel! You must get out of this place at once! I don't allow any bunkering here!
I put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I have not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily's a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. They're perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth did you go on up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying with you in your house for a week as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
I certainly won't leave you so long as you are in mourning. It would be most unkind. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I would think it most unfriendly if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are not too long about it. I've never seen someone take so long to dress with such little result.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have got to leave with a 4:05, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town. This bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success indeed. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her again before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then we've got to part.
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always painful parting from people whom one has known for a brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss?
Cecily, I hope I don't offend you if I state quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be in every way the absolute visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks in my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
No! You see, it is simply a very young girl's records of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I've reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should always speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily.
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Well, tell it to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir!
Uncle Jack would be very annoyed if he knew you were going to stay on until next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Uncle Jack. I don't care for anyone in the world but you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course! Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Yes, it will be 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, any man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you.
Darling, but when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear tree over here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name, and this bangle with the lover's knot that I promised you I'd always wear.
I bought you this. It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for you leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
But, my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well I was forced to write your letters for you. I always wrote 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
May I read them?
Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. They'd make you far too conceited. 3 that you wrote to me when I broke off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I could hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement actually ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you'd like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it best to do so. The weather continues charming.
But why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I've done nothing at all. I am very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, Cecily. Particularly when the weather was so charming.
It would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it had not been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
United boy. Hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
Glad to hear it.
You'll never break off our engagement again, will you, Cecily?
I don't think I could now that we have actually met. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love somebody by the name of Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, my own sweet child, you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if I didn't have some other name.
What other name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
But my own sweet, loving little Cecily. I really can't see anything wrong with the name of Algernon. It's a rather aristocratic name. Half of the chaps who get into bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character. But I'm afraid to say that I could not give you my undivided attention.
Your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all the practice of the rites and ceremonies of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him on most important christening. I mean, on most important business. I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and I've only met you today for the first time, I think it rather hard you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I shall be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax has called to see Mr. Worthing. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray, ask the lady to come here, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in some philanthropic work in London. I don't like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I find it so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other for such a comparatively short amount of time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
This might be an admirable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You've heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, I'm glad to say, Papa is entirely unknown. I think that's as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate. Does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It's part of a system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Ew. He never mentioned to me that he had a board. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I liked you ever since I met you. But I'm bound to state that now that I know that you're Mr. Worthing's ward, I can't help expressing a wish that you were just a little older than you seem to be and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Oh, pray do, Gwendolen. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always speak quite candid.
To speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were full 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest moral character are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history provides us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Who? But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who's my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm afraid to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Oh, well, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I'm so sorry, darling Cecily, if it's any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid that I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can say, dearest Gwendolen, if it caused you any physical or mental anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has found himself entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will not reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me as an entanglement, Miss Cardew? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest in an engagement? How dare you? This is no time to wear the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
Oh, well, I'm glad to say I've never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been wildly different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills close by, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, yes, flowers are as common here as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. If anybody who's anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
I suppose this is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy is suffering very much from it at present. It is almost epidemic amongst them. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
Oh, no, thank you. Sugar's not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
Madame, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, trusting, innocent boy from the machinations of another woman, there are no lengths to which I will not go.
From the moment I met you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Oh, Ernest! My darling Ernest!
My own darling.
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
His simple Jack.
Jack? No!
Oh, here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolen. I mean to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Oh, thank you, you may.
I felt that there might be some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who's now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? No! Are you really called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh.
Are you really called John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
Oh, gross deception has been practiced on us both.
My poor wounded Cecily.
Sweet wronged Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, will you
There's just one question I'd like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
Of course. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to put to you. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest. So it is of some importance to us to know where your brother, Ernest, is at present.
Gwendolen? Cecily. It is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life I have ever been reduced to such a painful position. And I'm really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I may tell you frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother in my life, and I certainly don't have the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
Oh, I'm afraid it is quite clear, dear Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go to the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose?
Yes, what a perfectly wonderful bunbury it is. Most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, you have no right whatsoever to bunbury here.
Well, that's absurd. One has a right to bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious bunburyist knows that.
Serious bunburyist? Good heavens!
Well, one has to be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about bunburying. What on earth do you happen to be serious about? I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite as often as you used to do, dear Algie, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off-color, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing, either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that you're taking in a sweet, innocent girl like that quite inexcusable. Not to mention the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defense for your deceiving a clever, brilliant, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she's my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolen, that is all. I love her.
I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of your ever marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't see much likelihood, Jock, of you and Miss Fairfax ever being united.
But that is no business of yours.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It is very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that. And then merely at dinner parties.
You can sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrible trouble I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It's the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I'm unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
I wish you had tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens, I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you. Under the circumstances, that is a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
That asked me to go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. Nobody ever does. Except vegetarians and people like that. I just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30. And I will naturally take the name of Ernest. Gwendolen would wish it. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence at all that I was ever christened by anybody. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I have not been christened for years.
No, but yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you're not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say it's quite dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. You need not forget that someone very closely connected to you was nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said that a severe chill was not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science has made wonderful improvements in things.
Oh, that is nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
Jack, we're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left.
But I hate tea cake.
Then why on earth do you allow tea cake to be served up for your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I've already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you
That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice this at all.
Couldn't you cough? But I don't have a cough.
Oh, they're looking at us! What effrontery!
They're approaching. It's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
Most distasteful one.
Yes, but we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing! There's something I have to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolen, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That seems like a most excellent answer.
Yes, dear. If you can believe him.
I don't. But it does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have the opportunity of coming to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest of doubts. But I intend to crush them. This is not the time for German skepticism. The explanations appear to be quite satisfactory. Especially Mr. Worthing's. His has the stamp of truth upon it.
I'm more than satisfied with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
Oh, true. I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Couldn't we both speak at the same time?
Oh, an excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly.
1, 2, 3.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names?
Is that all?
But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you're prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you are willing to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes. Where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
Darling. Lady Bracknell! Good heavens!
Gwendolen, what does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here, sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young, of physical weakness of the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I followed her at once by a luggage train. Her unhappy father, I'm glad to say, is under the impression she's attending an unusually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not plan to undeceive him. I have never undeceived him on any question. I'm considered wrong. But of course, you must clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You're nothing of the kind. And now, as regards Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh, no. Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury's dead.
When did Mr. Mud Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, poor Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I had no idea Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he's well punished for his morbidity.
My dear Aunt Augusta, I mean, poor Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that poor Bunbury could not live, so he died. That is what I mean.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I'm glad he made up his mind at last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we've got rid of this Mr. Bunbury, Mr. Worthing, may I ask, who is this young person whose hand my nephew is holding in a peculiarly unnecessary fashion?
That lady, is Miss Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married.
I don't know if there's anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that goes on seems to be above the number that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I feel some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of the question. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew connected in any way with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea there were families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, Southwest, Jervis Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, NB.
Oh, that's not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
Ah, I've often seen serious errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby and Markby, a firm of the very highest position in their profession. I've been told that one of the Mr. Barkbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I'm satisfied.
Extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I also have in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, Miss Cardew's certificates of birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
Ah, a life filled with incident, I see. Although perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolen, the time has come for our departure. We've not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. But that is all, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you. Goodbye.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000. And in the funds, Miss Cardew seems to be a very attractive young lady now. So few girls today have any really solid qualities. Qualities that last and improve with time. I'm afraid to say we live in an age of surfaces. Come here, dear. Pretty simple, and your hair looks much as nature might have left it. But we can easily alter that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces marvellous results in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and in 3 months' time her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn around. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, just as I expected, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The weak points in our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. Chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. They're worn very high just at present. Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardews' profile.
Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, prettiest girl I ever saw in my whole life, and I don't give 2 pence for social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. My dear child, as I'm sure you're aware, Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I myself do not believe in mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of my own, but I never for a moment dreamed of letting that stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
And you may call me Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I think the marriage had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I myself am not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before marriage. It's never advisable.
I beg your pardon, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you. But this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardews' guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
On what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the truth is, I don't approve of his moral character at all. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew, Algernon? Impossible. He's an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of a false pretense of being my brother. He drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of Perrier Chouette Brut 89, a wine I was especially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded during the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is the fact that he was very well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I don't have any intention of having a brother, not even of any kind. I told him so myself, distinctly, yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I've decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
How extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
How old are you, dear?
Well, I'm actually only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
Oh, you're quite right to make some alteration. No woman should ever be completely honest about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, my dear, it will be soon that you will be coming of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I don't think your guardian's permission is a matter of any importance.
I beg your pardon. Pray excuse me. I beg your pardon for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell. But I think it only fair to inform you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come legally of age until she is 35!
I don't think there's any grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the highest birth who of their own free choice remain 35 for years. Lady Stapleton is an instance in point. If I recall, she's been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. Many years ago. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not be even more attractive at the age you mention than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I don't think I could wait all that time. I hate waiting, even for 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I like punctuality in another. But waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Then what are we to do, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait until she's 35, a remark I am bound to say seems to me to display a certain impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But, my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage to Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
Of course, you know that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any one of us can look forward to.
That is not a destiny I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, may choose for himself. Come, dear. We've not a moment to lose. We've missed 5 or 6 trains already. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
To christening, sir, is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age? The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he knew that this was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand that there will be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that as things are now, it would be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. They savour of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your present mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her.
Oh, pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism A female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
Well, it's obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has for the last 3 years been Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Despite what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting there for you for 1 hour and 3/4. Oh.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. Several weeks later, after the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was located, standing alone in a distant corner of Bayswater. It contained a manuscript of a 3-volume novel of unusually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Oh, Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator. I had with me a somewhat old and capacious handbag in which I had intended to deposit the manuscript of a work of fiction I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet, and I placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
This is a matter of no small importance to me, Miss Prism. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
In the cloakroom in one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolen, wait here for me.
If you're not gone too long, I will wait for you all my life!
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I cannot begin to suspect Dr. Chasuble. I need not tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They're not considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Oh, God, he has a very emotional nature.
This noise is extremely unpleasant. It sounds as if he were having an argument. I dislike arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often convincing.
It has stopped now.
I wish he would reach some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible! I hope it will last!
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Oh, yes. Here is the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. And here on the lining is the stain from the explosion of a temperance beverage. An incident that occurred in Leamington. Oh, and here on the lock are my initials. I'd forgotten in a moment of extravagance I'd had them put there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
Oh, Mr.
deny that is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? How cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another law for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Oh, Mr. Worthing! Mr. Worthing! There has been some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Alfie's elder brother? I always knew I had another brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you ever have doubted that I have a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolen, my unfortunate brother. Algie, you will have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Well, not till today, old boy, I admit. Though I did try my best, however out of practice I was.
My own! But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
Good heavens, I had quite forgotten that point. Your decision on my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
Oh, I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolen.
Then the matter better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
As you were the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I can't at the moment remember what the general's name was, but I have no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, but that was in the later years, and as a result of the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion and other things of that kind.
Algie, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died when I was 1 year old.
His name would appear on the list of the period, I suppose, Aunt Augusta.
Well, the general was a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I'm sure his name would appear in any military directory.
The army lists of the last 40 years, I hear. These delightful brackets should have been my constant study. M. Generals. Malin, Maxbum, Magley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrief. Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General, 1869, Christian names, Ernest John. I always told you, Gwendolen, that my name was Ernest, didn't I? I mean, my name is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
Now I recall the general was named Ernest. I knew he had a particular reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest! I felt from the first you could have no other name.
Gwendolen, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one?
Letitia!
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last!
Gwendolen at last.
My nephew, you're displaying signs of triviality.
Oh, on the contrary, Aunt Augusta. I've now realized, for the first time in my life, the vital importance of being earnest. Stop playing that ghastly tune! How idiotic you